everyone else who's joining us today to another episode of the Ideas Project. So thank you, Vasu, for agreeing to join us. And so today's topic, everybody, is people automation and new avenues for strategic business partnering. And while that's like a longish title, what we're basically talking about here is how people automation is an opportunity to partner more closely with the business. And we're going to try and explore today, try and demystify the space of people automation. I think increasingly, all these phraseologies are really broad and often mystical for many people, because they actually include a broad spectrum of activities and broad spectrum of solutions. So I'm interested in demystifying some of this today. And of course, right at the start of the year, explore what opportunities does the human resources and people's function really have to be able to partner more strategically with the business by being able to proactively rather than reactively offer solutions in these spaces. So welcome everyone, all those who just joined in as well. Welcome to the Ideas Project. These are podcasts by the Learning in OD Roundtable, which is now morphed into the LNOD communities. This is Asia's first communities of practice. It's a tech platform. It's free in the first year. It has both a link through which you can join. You can join through the iOS platform. You can, join through various other avenues as well. For those of you who are interested to become part of the LNOD communities, do access, the chat here and send us your email ID so that we can basically reach out to you and welcome you to join the LNOD communities. It has a whole host of learning resources, 8 thematic groups which are most relevant to professionals at this time. While the platform, the original forum was created for HR, learning, OD, talent professionals, it's now open to anyone who wants to be, well-versed, well-prepared professional for the 21st century. So with that, welcome one more time, Vasu. Like I said, very interested and excited to talk to you today. So I'm going to start just at the start, but a bit of a introduction to this theme on why this interested us so much at the LNOD communities. And, while this space is much being talked about, and I think there is, there is a replacement part of AI and automation, and there is an augmentation part of AI and automation. And I think with the definition of work getting redefined in such a significant way, and the business environment being constantly disrupted, of course, technology being the biggest disruptor, and there's been just so much of shine around the whole space of Gen AI, that it was imperative to have this conversation with an industry expert. And Vasu, you having spent so many years in the human resources function before you branched out to be able to look at the HR tech space, which is an area of passion, and Blue Tech does some absolutely amazing work in this space. So I want you to start by being able to help really the audience understand. I'm hoping this is going to be a great conversation. So you must let me come back and say what I need to say when I need to say it, because this is really not an interview. It's meant to be a chat. So, do come in, tell us, let's start at the start with examples, some really good 3 or 4 solid examples of how it is that automation has disrupted the workplace. So let's just start with that. Give us from your own experience, some of these applications that we're talking about when we're talking about automation in the workplace, and how is it really basically augmented or replaced processes in the workplace. I'm hoping we're not talking about people at this time, but more about being able to create more efficiencies, more productivity in the workplace.
Cool. I think, there is I'll give you 3 dimensions on which you should think about automation first, right? And the first dimension is information. The dashboards, your analysis, your reports, whatever else you're looking at, you're looking for information within the organization, right? And for those of you who have spent a few years, I want you to go back to the start of your career and imagine how difficult it was to get information, right? That's one. The second is to be able to navigate through the organization systems, right? You have so many systems in the organization. You had multiple accesses, multiple IDs, multiple passwords. And today, you're working through and with all these systems with a single sign-on in most organizations. And in addition to that, the entire process of navigating your work is also getting automated. So there is the information dimension, there is the navigation dimension, and there is a third dimension to it, which is the transactional dimension, right? When I say transaction, it means that you want to be able to transact activities on a system, or you're leveraging the system to kind of initiate transactions through the system, right? Either way, it could be a simple leave approval. You're initiating it, the entire transaction is happening behind that. It goes to your manager's manager, depending upon the level of empowerment an organization can go to the, the odd head as well. It doesn't matter, right? But there are the transactional, which is the third dimension. So I want you to think on these three dimensions. Every change in automation affects these three, right? So when we began the era of the 2000s, in the initial stages, we had systems that were designed for HR to become more efficient, which is we wanted all the processes out there to be available in such a way that we were able to draw information out of it for ourselves. It was a very selfish kind of an approach that we started with, right? But the right thing, because it was a nightmare to kind of deal with what happened during the 2000s and the early 2000s.
Right.
But pretty soon, over a period of time, as customer experience related work got automated, we also realized that there was a need to kind of enhance employee experience. But let me tell you, a decade and a half went by where the focus was on the customer and not on the employee. So after almost 15 years, when I started talking about employee experience wasn't even a catchphrase. I still recall some article that I wrote somewhere long ago for People Matters or somebody. And it wasn't even a catchphrase at that time. But today, if you look at it and say, the entire automation has the third dimension, a fourth dimension, which is experience. So you have information, you have navigation, you have transaction, and now you have experience. So when you think automation, think on these four dimensions in your organization, right? So this would be the broad automation areas.
Nice.
Today, when you talk about automation, we automate everything, Sujaya. We automate right from pre-hiring to hiring to the entire hire to retire or hire to termination cycle. Retire seems to be a very old word now. Nobody retires these days, very few. Okay? Maybe the last vestiges of the boomer will retire. After that, it will be only termination that will happen. Or separation. Let's use a better word. So hire to separation cycle will be managed completely. It will be fully automated. Okay? You have the added problem in that automation dimension now, which will be probably a segue to your next conversation, and I will leave you with that, which is you went from too little data to too much data. Now, what do you do with too much data? How do you handle that? So if I were to summarize automation, that would be probably an easy summary or the four dimensions on which you could operate for looking at automation. I mean, I can give you examples if you want now, but I'm open to having another question so I can redirect.
Right. So I think that, I think what you're saying in terms of managing data and managing transaction, managing experience, I kind of like that flow because I think it's kind of also in terms of products and applications. I think they've followed that kind of spectrum, you know what I mean? Where you basically, by and large, trying to organize your information or data. I'm just talking about how technology really came to, especially people management in the workplace.
Right.
And that we weren't even talking about customer experience for a while. And I'm saying, while we're on the theme of customer experience, I'm very tempted to bring in a few, personal experiences I've been having in the last couple of years where I find, very well-established organizations still talking about how the entire reimbursement process for employees, for example, is not automated. And you still have to keep sort of, bills and, so this is an example of something that is tedious and has not gotten automated, despite everyone talking about technology and the rest of that. What's your own sense on this kind of poor adoption? What causes it, and what can people who are in charge of the people management function? I'm very mindful of the fact that our audience is not just large organizations where there is an understanding, savviness, perhaps a push from the top to be able to bring in this kind of automation. Oftentimes this is self-initiated. There is a lot of having to convince people to be able to bring in this kind of technology on board. And it's not uncommon to be surprised that organizations that otherwise seem to be large names or whatever have not bothered yet to be able to make some aspects of this experience less tedious for employees. I want to bring you in because you've been on both sides. Tell our audience a bit about what can you do if your organization's not pushing for even this basic, is transition from managing information to enabling a transaction. Leave aside customer experience, and I'm saying that how do you, even if you're at the transactional stage, how do you move it forward to an experience stage? What business case do you make internally to be able to get attention or even resources for something like that?
So let me tell you, my first twist with it, right? I took one of my colleagues, my team members, and made this lady I said, you'll be the head of employee experience. This was way back in 2015. 6 months into the job, she quit. Okay. And maybe there are various things, but all I'm trying to say is that it was not even a subject of great enthusiasm. To ability to define what would come under employee experience was a tough one. Okay. So at that stage, I had to start creating examples. I'll give you an example, right? Forget the whole process of getting reimbursement. I'll just give you a simple thing. When an employee joins an organization, the number of fields you have to fill to have a reimbursement related ID in the finance system, I'll give you an example, was almost 24 fields of data. Right? So you are typically, for that employee, from day one, when he has to get into that in a travel related company or a projects company, imagine there are 24 points of data he has to ask somebody, which is a colleague. And this is pre-COVID, right? So nobody even thought for COVID, forget it. So I had this guy in my team who was in charge of both service delivery and anchoring this. The hat of the employee experience went to him when he came on. He did something very unique at that stage. He came and said, Vasu, because we have automated everything, we were using SAP SuccessFactors at that time. He said, because we have deployed all these automation, I need only 2 data points from my employee. And I can actually populate all the 22 others from my system. And we've solved this problem. I said, fantastic, let's sit down and take a look at it. So the theoretical wireframe got done. So all an employee needed to input was his employee ID and his mobile number. And everything else got pre-populated and an account got opened for him. Okay, ID got opened for him. He could then transact with the entire reimbursement or the expense management system, as we used to call it those days. Let me tell you, there are plenty of cheap, very good expense management, app-driven, mobile phone-driven. I mean, there were responsive apps, which means you can across all the desktop, the tablet, and the mobile, it works. Lots of these are available today, right? And we don't have a dearth of systems and opportunities. We actually have too many of them. Choosing the right one for yourself will be the biggest nightmare today if you step out, right? With every little increase in budget, you get something more, right? You can on one hand go to SAP Concur and have everything on Concur, which is again a very good system, which most SAP ERP-based companies will go for a SAP Concur because SAP is the backbone for, and the ERP is the backbone for the CFO. So he tends to go with Concur at that stage. But any others will go for many. It doesn't matter what you have. So this is one example where I'm giving you which we did it in 2015, thereabouts. So it's not that it is new. Okay, these are available for everybody. It's just that you need to go to the market and look for what you want and plug that loophole. It's that easy today.
Right. And what about influencing people internally on what's the...
That's the bigger issue. Let's come to that. Because that is all about change management. It's got nothing to do with technology, right? Tech is just one part. So, in the good old days, we used to do what is known as a TPC analysis as part of change management. I don't know if you remember that. It was basically 3 things: technical, political, and cultural. 3 dimensions. So when you take the technical dimension, it's not a rocket science. It's all available today. The political dimension and the cultural dimension is a big challenge. So if you're an organization that is not very tech savvy, okay, they can also be made tech savvy, which I can share my own experience with you, because we took a 70-year organization, we could actually change it around. And everybody was on technology. But the political aspects are really about the gravitas of the HR function within the organization and what heft and influence the HR function has at the table of decision making. That is a function of, I would say, an individual's personality his capabilities and credibility within the organization to drive this. The
Right.
challenge there is really one of HR leadership driving that change. And Sujay, you've done this. I've
Yes.
done this. We know what it entails.
Yes.
Nothing is easy. It doesn't come easy. But I would say two things. One is know your onion very well. I mean, peel it, understand it, chew it, bite it. And after that, you should be in a position to articulate it in a way that the other person can actually think it is his idea
Right.
and then persuade them to execute their idea. That's what I would, kind of simplify it to. But that's the easier part of saying it. Doing it is a different ballgame. You need a clear business case first, right? You need a rupee value-based business case. Second, you need to understand every dimension of the technology, the cost, the initial cost, the running cost, and the future cost.
Right.
Or you need to know, pick the right time to go, because a good idea dies at the wrong time. So pick the right time, mostly broach the idea, work on it in a persistent way till you get what you want.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, because, I think that, your own personal credibility is right at the center of this. And I think your ability to have solved problems in the past is extremely important. I think, and I'm dwelling on this because I find so many, especially medium and small size organizations, cry out loud. I think it's also extremely important when it comes to tech to not treat this as gizmoism. And, I think that is another place where we lose the plot, you know what I mean? Which is, you want to do it because you want to keep up with the Jones, you want to do it because somebody else has it. And all of this has in the change management terminology, can have the potted plant syndrome, which is, you even get people convinced to be able to invest the dollars, and then you're not able to get the adoption that you require internally around the products. If it is indeed a solution, then that should be something should
I
manage.
will add another dimension to that problem that is there, right? There are companies that actually pick up good software. They fail for whatever reason. The tendency is to blame the platform or the application.
Right.
And I think that needs to stop. Because I've seen people throw out a really good platform, do change management twice, bring in a new vendor and put in a new one in its place. And they're leaving the company even before the journey has been seen, completed. So you don't even have a story to tell. You just, what you did is you got rid of one software, replaced it with one, but your CV will say, oh, I've done all this, right? But at the end of the day, the organization is not benefited. That leads to a lot of skepticism.
Of course.
Sometimes it is our own professional approach to ownership and delivery, which comes in the way of our own credibility. So on the TPC side, our own personal credibility is important. Yes, you need to understand the politics of the organization. Yes, the culture of the organization may have to change to kind of adapt to that. All of that you can drive, provided you have a clear change agenda, of which automation and, let's say, digitization and, let's say, future, the RPA work, the AI work, all of this would be a part of it. So you have to start right from policy to practice to culture to, influencing. All of these skill sets would be kind of, a question that I think we should address probably a little bit more in detail is, what should the new HR business partnering look like, in terms of the technology aspect. These are some of the things that will be a part of it.
Right. So we'll save that for the end. I'm very keen to be able to get, the audience excited about the kind of automation opportunities that you have in a workplace. And I know you work with several organizations around it. It's a space of passion for you. So would love for you to be able to take us through some of these stories of automation and how you can indeed partner strategically with the business to be able to find solutions through technology, especially when it comes to people. So take us through some of that. I think it would be wonderful to hear these stories from you. So if you can take us through 3 or 4 really solid examples of automation that you think are worth sharing with the audience here today.
I'll give you maybe one experience where there were a series of things and how it developed. Probably it will give you an understanding of how business looks at it, how HR looks at it, and how, let's say, L&D looks at it, for example. I'll probably cover 3 dimensions that you'll probably be happy about it. Here's an organization, 25,000 employees distributed across the globe, right? And majority of their people are in India. Okay. Another big chunk is in the US. I'm just giving you the kind of thing. And the rest are spread across Europe and other places, Middle East, Europe, Asia, all of the places. So they had a problem where they hired thousands of people in a year from campuses. But the entire process was that up to the stage of selection was manual. And then once selected, they would push it into the digital system. You understand the amount of effort that goes into campus hiring, right? I don't need to explain that.
Yeah.
So what we suggested to them when we looked at the whole process is, and it was very unique. So they would hire these people, then they would be shipped off to their engineering academies where they would specialize in certain areas. And then they would be deployed into the relevant verticals post-training. So imagine a situation, you have engineers, you are hiring mechanical, electrical, computer science, electrical engineering, electronics engineering, whatever the whole lot, right? And this is a research-based engineering kind of software development company. And for us, it was just one of those things where we had a conversation with them and said, hey, can you actually automate the front end? We said, yeah, we'll do it. And they said, do we need custom development? I said, no, we will do it on the existing platform. So what we managed to do is right from sourcing of candidates where either the placement officer or the student could directly upload their CV. That CV would come into the system. Okay. Then you had an interactive system for scheduling interviews and all that, including campus interviews and placements. Okay. Then these guys would get onboarded into something even before they graduated from the college. They had to undergo some amount of training while they were at college. So there is that initial engagement which keeps them warm right up to the point of hire. Okay. And then you hire them and then you send them to Global Engineering Academy or whatever. And then there they get trained. Now, what are the gaps here? All the gaps that were being manually done is understanding the individual, getting him boarded, interview, all of that is okay. There is a testing mechanism which is in between. There are ranking on the testing that comes in. All of this, the shortlisting was all manual. We digitized every aspect of this process. Now, when they came to the engineering academy, they realized that they were splitting them into different groups. When they started splitting them into different groups, and suddenly somebody came and said, look, you know what, actually, I have a specialization in this. I've done a project in this area. And this is something that you have vertical. Can you change my vertical? And normally a manager who has the employee for the first time is not going to change the vertical. Say, yaar, boss, abhi to aaya, kya change? Go. That meant leaving the system. So attrition started going. I said, how do we manage this one? So the next level of data, I mean, this is the end-to-end, it has been digitized up to that. Then there is a deployment. Once they get into a function, they deploy all the FTs across various businesses. Let's say somebody is a client of Cisco, IBM, whoever it is. They all have teams here and they go into those. The business came back and said, hey, you know what? We don't really have a full-fledged gradable inventory of skills of our people. Can you actually do this for us? So we created a workflow-based gradable inventory of skills. So let's say I report to you, Sujya. I go and say, I worked on this project. This is the skill set that I used. This is the period for which I worked. And this is the name of the project. And my division, etc. is pre-populated. Triggers a workflow to you. You go there and rank my capability. Have I demonstrated expert level, learner, beginner, or intermediate, or expert? So you can grade me on that. Now, pretty soon what happened is, this is the data that you have for almost, let us say, 18,000 employees in the organization. Right? Imagine now you want to create a bunch of people who have worked on Java or C++ or any of these things and have worked on aircraft engine design. A certain part of this, which is called the nacelle design, let's say, and that nacelle design is such a specialized piece. Where are you going to go and search? But if you have this database, you go and search for them in 5 seconds. You're using Boolean search, which allows you to actually use critical word search in that. Goes there, gets hold of the guys, stacks it out for you. You can decide what experience you've got, who are beginners, who are intermediate, who are experts. Pull out this entire list of people, see if they are people that you can actually get out. And even if you have a project the very next day for which you have to deploy these people, you can in 24 hours finish this one piece of work.
Okay.
Right? So this is the other side. Now, imagine the same thing applying. All of this list is available to you. You are a talent manager in your life as well at one time, both leadership and broad talent. Think about the data you now have for talent development and training. So the whole L&OD teams in the industry can now think in terms of very targeted training programs. If I want this guy from nacelle design to go into something even higher level. Let's say I'm doing it for aircraft engine for Pratt and Whitney, but I now need to do it for Boeing. It's better to take someone who's an expert here and put him on that rather than try to build a new set of skills. It's just the fungibility of the skill set to a different airframe design or an engine. So those kinds of choices now become much easier. So I'm giving you an example
I think that sounds fascinating, basically, but I'm going to ask you a very rudimentary, basic question, which is the fact that the person has the nacelle experience. How did you capture that?
So the org itself is, got a list of about, let's say, 4,000 skill sets. We had that, and the database was available. Plus, people could also be provided each one with a portlet where the employee can go and say, this is my skill set. So just before appraisals, we actually pushed it as a mandatory activity into the appraisal form. First form that you see is skills update. So he sits there, he updates all of that. Then he goes on to updating his objectives and telling me how he's performing. Right. So these are the little hooks of adoption within an organization.
I consider it a considerable hack, because one of the reasons why you can't get fungible with talent is because you don't have this data.
That's right.
And I think to your point that, you add it to or hook it onto your performance management process and make it sort of mandatory for people to be able to nuance what skills they have gained over a period of time, because that itself is not available in most organizations. And, I think that is your hack really in this.
And also what we did is there was another app in which there was a lot of data, but it had not been cleaned. We took their inventory set of skills, we put that at the back. So it's just a drop-down search. It's like a Google search, at the top. I want to search for a skill set. I go, anything with that just drops down. You pick the right one and you add it. Second, what we did is whatever skills they had declared earlier, we brought it in.
Right.
Now, but the beauty of this is this. So when we did all this, then they came back, Engineering Academy came back and said, hey, if you can have this in the back end, can you give it to me in the front end?
Right.
You're hiring, where the engineering college graduate says, I did a project in this. So I can intelligently allocate them to the right project or the right specialization. But then what happened later on is once that started happening, the quitting because I'm a mechanical engineer, but I want to be in this kind of design, but not that started dropping. So there was no second negotiation about my...
not just capability, you captured interest, which is where would I like to go, basically, and what kind of similar stuff have I done?
That's right.
So I think nice hack, because you do hacks you've shared here today so far. One is that you have these nuanced skill sets, and your performance management process is perhaps a good time to capture this and make it a mandatory process so that you do know it in the interest of the employee. The second part is if you capture projects and assignments that you can intelligently figure out what the area of interest might be, which is what is invaluable for employees, particularly at the time that we're talking about.
And the beauty of this is that, everyone in the organization does know, Sujaya, as to what is it that they want to accomplish.
Right.
It's just that they are not able to think through how to execute the digitization. That really is the challenge, right? So that is where we used to go in and help them with that. In the other hand that I do, right? So we go in there and we help them understand, okay, I help them articulate. We then say, what would be the step involved at every stage? Walk them through that and then digitize the process. So today, a lot more can be accomplished even with platforms. And on digitization, I will give you one thing that people need to think about. You have to think about application and platform differently. Right? When you look at, let's say, Oracle HCM or SAP SuccessFactors or Workday, they're all platforms. They are built to be like a passenger plane. Stable, robust, auditable, audit-worthy, all of that stuff. Compliance-driven, geography-wise compliance-driven. You don't collect more data than what you should in Germany, and you don't collect less data than what you want in India, right? So those kinds of things. And when you look at, let's say, the applications that you have, they're more like the jets. They're very, very, acrobatic. They're very, very easy to work with, very flexible. But people often, mistake one for the other. There is a place for a platform and there is a place for application. So if you bolt good application onto a robust platform, the integration between an application and a platform is far superior. Right? But if you don't have a solid platform and you just have an application that you're downloading and working with, then you have a flimsy application within the organization where the robustness of the platform is missing.
Right.
So, but today's the new age ones that are coming, and you're spoiled for choice today, right? Is a combination of both.
Yeah.
But then you need to look at stability. You need to look at data security, cyber security. These are the other dimensions that kick in after that. And therefore, the choice of the platform is always, if you're an affordable, if you're a medium scale organization, right, an MSME, you can now afford any big platform that is out there. And then you bolt on what I call as the experience layer. Right? And then you build that superior experience for people. But the tendency I'm seeing is there was a stage of about 5 years where people experimented with those things of having multiple bolt-ons. Starting last year, our experience is they want to get rid of all those third-party applications, build on the HCM that they've deployed, because they're all gone to cloud, and they want to build on that. And the platform companies also up their game significantly. So you don't have the past challenges that you and I faced when we were in industry. Much of that is gone. So AI is coming embedded as part of the.
Yes, I understand.
But AI, which is relevant. So you don't need to struggle. Second, it is governance driven. It is focused on compliance. So it's a lot smaller, but more relevant. Okay. At once, if you can say, oh, I want complete OpenAI thing to come in, then you're leaking organizational secrets on the net, right? It's like somebody put their strategy document to get a summary on ChatGPT, and the company strategy was on the net, and it went out from there. So that's a serious lapse. When you are stuck with policy, it is easier to work with a platform that's embedding AI into it, because then the safeguards are already there.
Right. I want to go back to the examples, Vasu. I think that is the best way to bring to life how can you really be of strategic relevance to the business, especially in the context of people-related automation. So please tell me more. We talked about a couple of examples that we would try and bring forth in the conversation today. Do you want to move on to another example that will be able to bring to life how automation can enable the strategic value addition that we want to do to the business?
Oh, okay. Take, for example, your space is the best. I mean, L&OD, it's the entire leadership development space. Potential identification, classification of talent, 9 boxing of the talent if you wish to, or 4 boxes, no matter what boxes these days use. So all of that stuff, including succession, can be digitized.
Right.
I mean, I ran the entire succession for an organization of 1,200 managers and above, right up to the president, digitally in 2016. And today it's even better. Today nobody even prepares a presentation. It automatically creates a presentation in the platform itself. We've gone to that level now, right? And the beauty is that a lot of this data is already there. Succession feeds into talent acquisition.
Right.
Specific roles, let's say the critical roles, we expect that to be manned by top talent.
Right.
So the first role of the recruiter is to go back and see what is my talent pool inside the hub. Who do I need to give a job rotation now? So we give 1 week to that. And in 1 week, if you can't identify an internal person, only then you go. And internal is graded. There are people applying for the jobs, but first is you take my top talent with the high potential talent, look at them, see who amongst that talent pool can be brought. We can have specific talent pools by division, by segment, by vertical, by function, whatever you want today. These pools are readily available. You just have to go and click on that pool. You have the full list of people. Then you have a conversation who can be released, not released. You bring those people in, and then you do that. So if you take the entire hiring space, that is the subject of perhaps the largest disruption today, both from a talent management perspective, use of AI perspective, and the decrease in manual work that is there.
Right.
So all appointment letters are automated. In the US today, you have 40-page annexure and 20-page appointment letters, so many clauses and all that, right?
Yes.
All of that is automatic. It gets digitally signed by the candidate.
Right.
Nothing, there are no emails exchanged. The link just goes to the guy's email. He clicks on it, comes onto my system, clicks on he accepts it. The minute he accepts, there is another email that goes to him with that appointment letter. digitally signed off by the head of HR or who is the appointing authority. And all of this is automatic. You don't even get involved with it. If it doesn't reach you in time, that's because somebody got to click the damn thing and say, okay, release. Because they want that release control. Otherwise, we can even go to the next level and automate and say, if the candidate accepts, automatically the whole thing happens. So today, any activity where you don't want a control, we can automate. But if you want control, those controls can also be built.
Right.
So the entire pre-hiring to post-hiring is one of the highly disrupted spaces. And people who used to visualize how lovely it would be if my TA person knew, hey, I have to give this opportunity first to my top talent within the organization, and then anyone else who's applied. If I can't sort it out in the next 1 week, only then I go out. We could reduce, I'm not talking about this, about 5 years ago, or even almost 7 years ago, the entire hiring, which used to be 30 to 40% external, just came down. We shaved off almost 25% of that. Right. So today, those kinds of things will work very well. I mean, when you're partnering a business, imagine what is the business wanting? You want career growth for your people. You want job rotation for your people. You want value addition of skill sets to people. These are things that you can deliver today at the touch of a button. And was it possible sometime back? Yes, it was clunky, possible. Today, it is seamless and possible. And much more advanced in terms of the experience. And, depending upon the access, you can give it to the people in the organization and the business. They can go and choose who are the people they want to move around, even within their own verticals.
Right.
The business leader has got access to the entire skills inventory. He has access to all his people within the organization below him. And there are rules. We can't go and see above him and into somebody else. So we put those in. But this is fantastic amount of opportunity. I mean, I'm more excited, and I wish I was an HR guy back again in the industry today with all this tech happening around me. And I kind of have this whole of, having missed out during my career, though I did enjoy a period where I had a, wonderful access to tech and all that, which got me into what I do today. But the opportunity is endless, and it's really exciting to be an HR person today.
Right. So I'm going to just pause that only for a bit. I share your excitement, but I want to be able to bring in, some of the common perspectives around that create concern around, the use of data sciences and the opportunities of the technology that you have access to today. So I'm going to bring up the piece around, for example, you just mentioned the example on using this for succession planning. The whole process of being able to manage succession planning and development inside an organization is a very emotional process.
Yes.
Yeah, emotions run rife when you're looking at succession. There are insecurities, there are fears, there's just many other things that you need to manage around this. The way you describe and I know you're talking about data when you're talking about we plan, succession, and exactly what you need for whom, and if this person's available, if not, then is that person available? And you're talking about a far more kind of agile, nimble process where there is the savviness and the maturity to be able to deal with this data in a meaningful way. I'm just going to take a couple of steps back, because this is not true that you have the same level of maturity, across organizations. In fact, a lot of these processes come unstuck because you don't perhaps have the perspectives or the leadership maturity, or even the understanding on to what extent will impersonal objectivity work, and to what extent will it limit the use of human ingenuity, human perspective, human opinion, human personal experience, and human judgment, which is actually going to shape perhaps some of these decision making. So I want you to focus on, or maybe comment on, the kind of the use of data sciences and technology in tandem with leadership and culture, and the ability to be able to influence, have the meaningful dialogues that you need to have. And that even if the data throws up certain things, there is still space for the human ingenuity, creativity, perspective, which the machine's not capable of doing, even if it's throwing up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at it like this, right? I mean, you probably are even more qualified than me to talk on that subject, but let me dimension out the tech aspect, and then we'll get into that.
Yes.
So there are the traditional spaces for automation, which we all know. Let's take the hire to the retire, or the term separation side. And then there are areas where you want to release more time to the people who are working in that space. Imagine there is a 3-member L&OD team, right? I mean, how much can they do?
Yeah.
They would do the 360-degree feedback. They do all of that stuff plus, plus, it just goes on. And we managed to automate a lot of this stuff. What it did was it released more time for the actual conversations. So if you look at the entire tech spectrum, today you'll have the traditional automation, you have the robotic process automation, then you have the AI, which is, I'm using it as a higher layer over the RPA. But the last part of it, okay, for even a second, you shouldn't hesitate, is the human judgment. That part is never going away. So AI is never going to replace human beings in every sphere. Wherever there is a human context, the human being is the most important layer. That's number one. So your brains are not going to be replaced. What happens is with each of these, whether it is automation, the enhancement through RPA or through the AI layer, it just makes it easier for you to work with data and be a more, actually help you have a more credible conversation. Because the minute you have data, you move from anecdotal conversations to a data-driven conversation. And one of the challenges that we have for the HR team going forward is when your language is evidence-based and data-based, there is little for somebody else on the other side of a wiggle room to argue and get away from you.
So
you can actually pin them down much better. So to me, the advantage that we have here is it releases time for you to have quality conversations, data-driven, evidence-based, and not anecdotal.
Right.
Most people will come and tell you should promote this guy. This guy is fantastic. That's one anecdotal point. But if I know that here is his history, this is the college, this is where he studied, these are the organizations he worked, these are the roles he's worked, he's multicultural, multidimensional, multiple projects he's worked on, and he's come, then I come and say, oh, you know what, I think this is right. We should promote the guy to the next level. But if I don't have all that, I'm just depending upon 3 people in the organization who know one guy and say, he's good. No, that's not enough in today.
I so agree. Can't agree more. Just wanted to move this to the whole space on, I think the statistics are that almost 60 to 70% of any form of customer support will be outsourced to machine learning and bots. And it already is beginning to become that within organizations where you're pre-onboarding or some of your onboarding pieces, you're actually dealing with a bot and chatbot. And I'm just trying to understand, what is your reaction to this, or what is your reaction to the fact that it is impersonal, it is not as satisfying as talking to a human being. It is limited in terms of the quality of interaction, especially in an era where we underlining and shouting out loud for connectivity, for human connectivity. Tell me a bit about this business of using chatbots through the entire onboarding process, especially when you're saying we're struggling with attrition, we want to look at quality talent. And I know that for most people, if it is a chatbot that's interacting with you, you'll be professional enough to be able to continue the interaction and do what's required to get done so that you are on and so on. But it does have its limitation. I'm just talking about chatbots in an era where you're crying out loud for human connectivity.
Look, this is a technology that is actually not used there. Those who have done it well have done it well. And those who haven't done it well have not done it well because there is a challenge in the whole process of how you go about it. Right? So chatbots have been in existence for quite some time. Right? So there are basically information chatbots, which is what you call chat is basically, I ask a question, I get an answer. But the question really here is, can it give me an intelligent answer? Right? And our first experiment with chatbots was in about 2018, I recall, when we were training the bot. Right? There's a master bot and there's a slave bot. I'm not getting into that part, but we're training the bot with a lot of answers to questions. Right? It's like literally you ask a question, you answer the question, and the bot learns what it is. So it is rudimentary best. It is looking for literally a word search and giving you an answer. So it can be very stupid. Like for example, you will now see that a bot also gives you an excuse when you interact on a customer side. Say, sorry, I'm in my learning place. Please bear with me.
Yeah.
You don't think you can answer the question. There is somebody else I'll put you onto. And immediately there is a transaction that happens.
Right.
It moves you on to an operator who will take care of it.
Right.
But as part of that, the bot is getting trained. You and me, today, when we interact with so many things like chatbot, we are training. The natural language processing is working. So there are these neural networks, there is RNNC and whatever. Let's not get into that. But there are neural networks that can now be even trained to go and look for image and do an image search.
Right.
You put an image, it'll go and search for that image, right? And give you alternative images. So when you come up with the Microsoft Copilot today, with chatbot kind of built in, with all the safeguards, etc., you're not going to hesitate to use that chatbot. It is at the end of the day, you can call it Chat GPT and don't think of it as a bot, but inside it, see, think about it like this. In our day and age when we were there, deep learning was there, machine learning was there, algorithms were there, because algorithms have been, there for centuries. We have not used it in the way we are applying it today, right? And all of that was there, deep learning was there. So today what you have is a coalescence of all technologies coming together, right? You have electronics and telecommunications, mobile. I'm talking about hardware and acceleration within the hardware of mobiles. You have chips, which have gone way better. And you have communication technologies that have improved significantly. So you have, in your, today, the mobile phone, let's say a high-end Samsung or an Apple phone, the computing power is equivalent to, let's say, this is often repeated but cliched. What put the man on the moon in 1967, right? So at the end of the day, if you really want to think about it, imagine that kind of power in your hand, in the palm of your hand. So, and today, if you get into Microsoft Bing, it comes with a Copilot, right? SAP SuccessFactors is going to have has a Copilot which is getting along called Joule, right? IBM has got a Copilot. Everyone has now got Copilots coming in. So you are not going to be working as a purist without a Copilot. You will have a Copilot. The minute I use the word Copilot, you don't mind, because a Copilot is there to augment and take care of things that you can't take care of. Or do things that you will not be doing as a pilot, right? So even in an aircraft, a co-pilot is an accepted co-passenger in the cockpit. Today, out here, you have, in your digital cockpit, you have a co-pilot who's there with you. So no big deal. The fear is gone completely. In fact, in this new generation, there's no fear of these technologies. The question really is to stop them from overusing it and putting data out on the net. But think back to the second. So if you are really a person, you cannot think of working in the future without a chatbot or without a bot. No, let me tell you what is going to get even worse. There are company-owned bots or company-created bots. You are going to get into third-party bots that you will transact with. If you're in the procurement function of your company, you'll be interacting with a bot with another vendor or a supplier. So you'll have vendor bots, supplier bots. And then there are things that you do, there are specialized services which is coming through a bot to you, which help you do your job better, which will be third-party bots that you will work with. Right? The Microsoft Copilot is a third-party bot with you, in any case to begin with, right? Who will write a better JD than you and I ever could in the past, right? Or you can today go into LinkedIn and give an option, I want to make a JD. This is the position, few descriptions. It asks you, do you want to be doing it yourself or you want to be supported with AI? Right? You want the AI supported? I want to do it manually. Between these two, which option are we going to choose, Sujay, if you don't have time?
There's an obvious choice there where you can augment the work you're going to be doing with it. That's the way I see it.
So imagine LinkedIn bot goes to my page, my web page, which is also loaded into it, looks at all the kind of work we do as a company, takes a synopsis of that and puts it as the preface to the job JD, and says, okay, this is what the company is all about. This is blue tech talent. This is the job of an SAP consultant. These are the kind of skill sets we're looking for. It goes, looks into whatever it has learned in the past, pulls everything and puts it there for you. All I do is spend 2 minutes editing it to ensure that it is not putting some stuff from imaginary stuff. Clean it up, give it the okay and go. So imagine how much time I've saved on one JD. And if you have to sit there in an organization and create, let's say, you have 25,000 people, narrow it down, at least there are 2,000 JDs, minimum, or 3,000 JDs. Right? Assuming that some JDs are common for a whole job family of people.
Right.
Are you going to be able to sit and do those 1,000, 2,000 KDs in 2 days?
In fact, that's one job that never gets done because no one has the bandwidth to do it. So,
Right.
and that seems to persist. So I think these are fabulous examples. I'm just mindful of time. So I'm going to try and bring you to, the whole sort of redefinition of employee. And the broadening of the definition of employee. So I think the off roles, the FTE versus off roles we've had for a long time. This is now, morphed into multitudes of formats in which you can employ people. And I think this whole business of gig, which has really evolved and it's really palpably real for organizations across sectors, whether it's insourcing, outsourcing, project executive, consultant, whatever formats it is that you're employing people in.
Correct.
I want to highlight the opportunity that people have this year in 2024 to be able to integrate all these formats of employment to people-related practices and programs using automation.
Sure.
In the last few minutes, highlight this part because I think it's a real opportunity for the community over 2024. So over to you.
Let me give you one example. The gig worker is not just a gig worker. So gig worker is just one category. So you'll have employees, you'll have gig workers, you'll have vendors, you'll have contractors, will have all kinds of, modes of employment. It's a contract for rendering services. Let's put it. It's a contract of service, which we as employees do, and there is a contract for service in the legal terminology of the past that we were used to. You have these two.
Yeah.
But surprise, surprise. Today, when you do an org 360, you really want client to be a part of the individual's 360. Right. So anyone who's interacting with him could not only be a part of this, but also of a customer.
Right.
So what is an employee? I mean, 360 feedback to an employee meant boss, subordinate, ref, right, peers, etc. That definition has gone out of the window. Now, if I have a shop that is servicing a client called, let's say, Wells Fargo in the US, or whoever it is, I want the lead out there to tell me what my employee, who's a dedicated employee towards Wells Fargo services that I give you, is doing and how is he doing. So he's part of his 360 assessment now. So how do I deliver that? Technology helps me today to deliver that. I can get external feedback. I can get external feedback from people whom he gives services, or I can also get feedback from people who give services to him or sell products to him.
Right.
A procurement guy, I can now get feedback from a guy who's selling to him, or a people providing a service which is anchoring in the system. How is he treating those people? Because as an organization, I want my brand to be remaining intact across multiple touch points. It's not just employees anymore.
Right.
Software has evolved significantly. Management of people. Let me give you an example of this, which you will understand, right? Take Uber, for example. Do you know Uber taxi guys? I mean, you know that. They also rate us as a client.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? Yep. So Uber has that information. Then it decides how to increase service levels to you or not. Right? The car is not owned by Uber.
Right.
BlueSmart has come and, it has done a beautiful thing of owning the car, owning the experience, training the drivers and saying, hey, look, you're not going to have anybody in BlueSmart turn you down. If you make a booking, we'll be there. Right? We're giving you that assurance. So an industry that got disrupted in every piece across the supply chain is now getting consolidated across some of the parts of the supply chain because context becomes relevant, judgment becomes relevant.
Right.
I'm just giving you a very simple example. Now, correlate that with your organization. Context becomes important. You may not be a big organization today. Imagine tomorrow you go and join a very large organization. The role of HR is going to be very different in those organizations. So when you look at HR business partnering and you want to deliver value, which is the second half of what you're going to be talking about, you really are looking at a complete change in the skill set for the HR business partner. Second, the ability to think through these kind of analogies and to have a problem-solving orientation, a critical thinking orientation, to break it back and say, what can I digitize and what I can't digitize? Those are skill sets that are now extremely relevant to have as an individual if you want to stay relevant in the industry.
So true.
You get where I'm coming from. So the whole partnering equation is going to change. calling yourself an HR business partner, having a certain JD, and actually partnering a business is completely different.
Right.
Right? I don't want people to get these two confused. Partnering a business and being an HR business partner are two different hats. The time has come where you might be designated as an HR BP, but you need to understand what partnering a business is. So understanding of the business needs, how things happen within the business, where the customer is, where the vendor is, what happens to the whole sell to closure cycle. Understanding what parts of that you will intervene and you will have a governance over. Because you need a policy for a contractor, you need a policy for gig worker, you need a policy for a vendor, etc. So bringing all these together is not going to be easy.
Yeah.
So you know it's going to be a very complex job, but very exciting nevertheless.
Oh yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I think this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vasu, for agreeing to do this. You're clearly so passionate about what you do every day, and I'm glad that you were able to share some of these experiences and insights with everyone who's joined on this podcast. People, 2024, make that the year of critical thinking, problem solving, and real partnering. So many opportunities to be able to bring the value of technology, automation, Gen AI, machine learning, data sciences to your job, and to be able to basically become truly a new age HR professional. So good luck, and thank you for listening to us today. We have lots of exciting stuff coming up on the Ideas Project, so watch the space for more. Thank you, Vasu, and I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you, everyone.